Church, you know that expression, easier said than done? I had that expression come to my mind today in relationship to the sermon yesterday, which is on the will of God, and some news that we received as a church this morning. And I just couldn't help but think, man, God, you give us things to think about, and they remain theoretical until they're not. And then when they're practical, it's easier to talk about them sometimes than it is to do them. And many of you know that we've been praying for a while and applying for a grant to help continue on the renovations here at the center. Well, we got the news this morning that we were not awarded the grant. We didn't receive any monies from the state of Massachusetts for the next phases of renovations. So we stop, and if you're like me, if you're hearing that for the first time, your first impression is like disappointment, and that's fair. Like, really wanted that. That would have been awesome. And we were prayerfully pursuing it. So then the question is, well, was it not God's will? Was it not something He wanted us to do? Is it, what happens when you pray for something and you don't get it? You know, it's much easier said than done. Oh, we're going to trust the will of God. But it's easier when then you get what you pray for. And it's harder to just trust in the will of God when you don't get what you pray for. And so this brings me back to the sermon yesterday. You know, the pleasure of God is that we would do His will. And this center here that we're a part of and the church that we're a part of, it is His will to reach out to others with the love of Jesus and with the offer of salvation. Like, that's clearly the plan will of God. And it is the pleasure of God to provide for us. But evidently He's not going to provide in this way at this time, and that's the specific determination. So was it God's determination, His specific plan, that we get this grant? No. But was it His will that we pursue any means we can for Him to provide? Sure, I think that honors Him, and I think He's happy to do that. So as I was thinking about putting these things into practice, I wanted to challenge us to let this be a lot more than just a financial update, but there's really a much deeper spiritual lesson that we could take from this, which could apply to all sorts of areas in our lives. And so I'd like to ask us, church, that today each of you, and Michelle and I did this morning, I'd like to challenge you to pray a prayer that's kind of along the lines of James chapter 1. James chapter 1 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you encounter struggles and challenges of many kinds." So this is a struggle and a challenge. We still see our building here that needs hundreds of thousands of dollars of work, but we still believe that it's God's will to provide for us. It'll be in His timing and in His way, and evidently it's not this time and not this way. So we're willing to submit to Him and say, well, your will be done, and still pursue the pleasure of God in being His hands and feet in this place, in loving our neighbors and worshiping Him here. It'll require our leaders to kind of go back to the drawing board and say, okay, let's reevaluate the projects that we have in line. What are necessities? What are the right order of events? What can we afford now? What will we fundraise? But it is still God's will for us to move forward. It just might not have been in the easy way that we wanted. So I wonder what sort of lessons God's going to teach us from this. But I encourage you to pray today, as Michelle and I did. Thank you, God, for not giving us the grant. We don't know exactly why, and we don't know exactly how we'll do it, but that's the life of faith. To just continue to have faith that God has a master plan, that prothesis plan, and that we're according to His will when we're seeking things for Him. But then we show our true faith in Him when the boule determinations, the specific things happen, and we realize one way or the other, God answered that prayer yes, or answered that prayer no, or we have no answer yet. So in this case, God is saying, not this way and not this time. I encourage you to keep praying for His provision. It will come in His time and in His way. And I just thought it was a great example of the sermon from yesterday. So let it be just as easily done as it is said in this case. And I encourage you to continue to trust the Lord in your own lives for the things that you're praying for as well. And hopefully our shared experience here at the center and with New Hope will be ways that God's strengthening us in our own lives, not just financially, but the much more important spiritual side of things as well. So God bless you this week, church. May His will be done on earth as it is in heaven.